Welcome to today's talk. My name is Deidre Moss. I will facilitate today's discussion. I am a PhD candidate and a talk connoisseur. Today, we will be talking about Caribbean folklore, and we believe we are qualified to talk about this because we are from the Caribbean or the West Indies. So, before we get into that, we can introduce ourselves. As I mentioned before, my name is Deidre Moss. I am from the beautiful islands of the Bahamas, and my co host today is Lisette Horton. She can introduce herself. Hello.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Lisette Hawthorne from Jamaica. I am with the UE Open Campus Graduate Program, and I'm here to have a talk with you.
Great. And I know that she is a proud Jamaican, right?
Oh, yes, every time.
Absolutely. My name is Deidre Moss. Again, like I said, I'm from the Bahamas. I am 100% full-blooded, proud Bahamian woman. I am proud of my heritage. I was born, bred, and gaded Bahamian. So, moving into
Oh,
our
boy.
topic. So, the Caribbean. The Caribbean region is a host to an abundance of folklore and oral traditions that have been passed down from generation to generation. So, today we would like to examine some of those myths, traditions, and characters of those folklores. For the purpose of this discussion, I searched for the definition of the term folklore. According to the Oxford Dictionary, folklore are the traditional beliefs, customs, and stories of community that have been passed down through generations by word of mouth. And specifically, Caribbean folklore involves the many elements of Caribbean culture that were passed down through the generations and brought from the African West Coast. They include some of the myths and practices that were passed down from one generation to the next. With that being said, we can get into our discussion. And the first point of this talk or discussion I would like for us to go into is myths. And so for me, being a Bahamian, both of my parents are from what we would call the Old Islands. So we have a capital city, and then we have a bunch of islands that are outstretched that we call the Family Islands, or we call them the Old Islands. So they were not from the capital city, and I remember them telling me different things growing up. So I don't know, from where you're from. I know you have parishes, I think, and
Yeah, we
so
have
I guess.
14 parishes.
Mhm. So I guess you would have your different myths. But one of those myths, I don't know if it's the same for you, but I guess we may have variations of them. And I know growing up, my parents used to tell me, my mom used to say, well, if you hear someone calling your name, you don't answer. You always go and see who it is calling you. You don't answer because sometimes that could be a spirit. They don't say spirit, but they say spirit calling you. So I don't know if you would have any variation of that in your culture.
Yeah, man, we have the same thing. Have the same thing
You have the
where
same thing?
yeah, man, especially if you know that you're alone in the house and hear somebody calling you, and you know that the voice of the person that is calling you is not around anymore, you know that it is an anomaly. So it has happened to me. It has happened to my late sister. But the one that happened to me was when I used to sell a particular product, and when persons would come into the yard, they would call me teach. So on this occasion, I nobody knew I was home, but because normally my car would be the indicator, so nobody had any reason to come into the yard, and the window was open. I could see through. I hear something walk up, reach up to the landing and say, teach, loud, loud, loud. And I didn't answer, and I heard the voice say, teach again. And I'm quite looking through the window and not seeing a soul. So I
You
have
said
witnessed that.
peach or peach?
Teach, I'm a teacher.
Okay.
Teach. So, because normally I would sell and, they would call me teach. So sometimes I know I'm washing at the back and thing. So I, so we have that in common. And I know, in the bigger sense, the broader sense outside of me, we are told not to call, not to answer because it's Duppy's calling. And if you answer, Duppy is going to slap the hell out of you until you're dumb and
So for those who
unconscious.
may not know, what is a duppy?
Duppy, spirit, spirit. So I was not cultured in that way, just that it happened to me. But there was a particular school that I was at where there was a community graveyard with the church and the school all in one. And so they say, just don't answer because it could be one of those spirits come calling. And a lot of times persons have said that they found themselves gone unconscious or not knowing what happened to them until someone throws water on them. So, yep.
That's some interesting stuff. And also, growing up, I remember when I used to ride in the car with my parents, and they would say, "Don't point at the graveyard." So yeah, I don't know what that one is about. And then, oh, go ahead.
No, that one is interesting. Continue, continue.
Do you have a variation of that in Jamaica?
Yes. If you hear the spirit of your dead one call, don't answer because you're going to get something that you're not expecting. Yeah.
Yeah, these are some scary myths. These are the
But yeah,
scary ones. Yeah.
I don't find them scary. I find them intriguing.
Mm. Well, attached to those myths as well are pregnancy myths.
Okay.
And yeah, so one of them, I don't know if it's the same within your culture. One of them is when you have a child, you know that the cord that is connected to give nourishment from the mother to the child at the navel, that part drops off. So they say whenever that part drops off, you bury the navel. I guess they call it the navel string. You bury the navel string in the yard to keep the child stable.
I don't know about the stability part. I know that um there's something similar to that effect. And I mean, to this very day, I still have the two umbilical cords for my children. I still have them. I don't know why the hospital gave them to me. But they put them in these canisters and they gave them to me. But I don't know the significance. You'd hear some person say, "My neighbor string cut in this yard," especially when you were born at home. My neighbor string cut in this yard, or when you're planting a tree, you think you might have to put the put the neighbor string under the seed of the tree for it to grow. I don't know, but I still have the canisters that have the neighbor strings of my two children.
Interesting, interesting. I know we're supposed to bury the string.
Well, I
But
wasn't I wasn't cultured that way. They just gave it to me.
also, this one attached to pregnancy has to do with the mom. It involves banding up the stomach after you have the child. You band up the belly. So I don't know if that's in your, if you have a
We
variation
have
of
a
that.
similar thing where we have to wear these. Well, I don't know for the millennials. I know for me, where my mother's concerned, I always hear my persons say you must wear girdle or big panties that would hold the belly to bring back the belly in shape. So sometimes you'd have one of those corset looking things to help, what do you call it, reshape your body so that you're not out of proportion. Mhm.
I like how you said that, out of proportion.
Mhm.
But it's
Out of
actually
proportion.
a whole banding. So for several days or even for several weeks, it's a whole banding a process. So I know someone would have
No,
shared that with me.
don't know
Yeah,
that one.
yeah.
But I mean, there are similarities in that we have to wear something to hold the belly up after the child is born.
Hmm. And then also another part of that, as a child gets older, like I said, um, there is a myth that you should not cut the child's hair until after they speak. You should not cut the child's hair before they speak, because you could prevent them from talking or cause them to develop some type of stuttering. Um, that is a myth. I don't know where that would have originated.
I I think there's something similar, especially when there's something called the mold. You don't want the baby to catch head cold, so you don't cut it until the child reaches a particular age.
Yeah, I heard about
So
the
it's
mold on the top of the head. Yeah, I heard about that one too.
yeah. So you
But
mustn't expose the mold.
hmm but I guess I know some of the older folks, I guess they would be able to go more in depth to actually what that mean, or how it relates to how it would have originated from African culture, what meaning it has, or what symbolic meaning, sorry, it has today. But those are some of the myths that I know. It's so many more. There's actually so many more to talk about. I don't know if you have any more you
No,
recognize within your
I'm
life.
just not for, I'm just trying to remember. Just that I I have not had children in in a long while, so I'm out of the loop where that is concerned. But there are other folklores we can look at. For instance, the one, well, I don't know if it exists now, but when my grandparents had wooden kitchens that would be detached from the houses or stuff, that when they are washing rice and they're going to discard the water because they didn't have sinks at that time, they would throw the water through the window, but you have to say, excuse me first. So you have the basin with the rice water, you say, excuse me, and then you toss the water over. Or else you're going to find that something comes back at you. Yeah. So you have to say, excuse me.
I don't know, but some of these things seem so scary. They seem like some scary stuff. Like it's always a consequence of you not doing something.
And isn't that the law? Same thing with the law. If you obey the law, you're all right. If you don't obey the law, you get yourself arrested.
Yeah, it's interesting if it's in its origination from the West African coast. It
Yeah.
says a lot that if you don't follow these, or if you don't do these things, there's gonna be consequences.
Well, it speaks to discipline then. We were origins of a disciplined society.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then moving into the second point, I wanted to talk about John Canoe, because I know I would have had a conversation with you before about there being some type of variation within your culture. But in going back into that, when I first would have learned about John Canoe in class, we were told that the word was derived from a slave named John Canoe. And Junkanoo was an event that the slave owners allowed the slaves to have one night to celebrate and enjoy their African culture. Now, when I visited the Bahamas government website, it says that Junkanoo is a Bahamian national festival that originated around the 17th century. Although the true origin of Junkanoo is unknown, its roots can be traced back to West Africa, and the most popular legend states that the name originated, like I said, from John Canoe, who was an African tribal chief who demanded the right to celebrate it with his people after being brought to the West Indies in slavery. So I guess you can talk about your variation of John Canoe.
Yeah, but I thought you would have expanded on your version of Don Kudu first, and then I would just piggyback on yours.
Well, with us, we normally have two. We have two celebrations. So you would have one around Christmas, and then you would have one around New Year's. And so it would be an occasion for you would decorate the costumes. I guess you using cardboard in the beginning, but I guess as we have advanced, is just different types of materials that were used to decorate the different costumes, and then you would have different themes, and we would go marching. Usually, we would go marching down Bay Street. You would hear the cowbells, the gold skin drums, and all that stuff, all the music looking off. You just couldn't help but to get excited and get dancing to the music. So you would have different groups come and parade and have their different themes, and you would have a celebration.
Well, the Jamaican John Kun is usually held around Christmas time. It consists of different characters, all played by male, no matter the gender of the characters. So we would have that. I think it originated from the pre pre-emancipation era around Christmas time, when there was just this one day for the slaves to do their celebration. And so some of the characters, some of the well-known characters, I think it's about 12, but the ones that I can recall now is Belly Woman, Devil, Horsehead, Pitchy Patchy, Red Set Girl, Blue Set Girl. I don't remember the others right now, but they all would dance to music, um, medium to fast pace, to goat skin drums, and a fife. There may be yeah, goat skin drums, yes, small like a snare drum made out of wood and goat skin. And then there is this bamboos looking thing they have as a fife. And the musicians would go around or proceed or go ahead of the dancers, and then the dancers would go into the communities, knocking on people's doors and asking for a little donation or contribution and so on. This is now the modern part. Now they would go around and so in the modern sense, it would go around to the different houses or different places in the main town. But back in the days now, during the whole crop over setting, they would be on display on the grounds of the um the estate, for the masters to watch, and they would have a ball of a time. But I think that was also the prime time for the drummers, other drummers, to communicate between estates as to certain plans as to how to take over the slave estate when they were going to hatch out their rebellions also. So that thing was a dual thing. It was one day that the persons would have a chance to communicate across estates, because the estates were not really too far from each other. They were on hills, and when you're on hills, the sound would travel across. So that would be the downtime for what you call it now. The security would be a little bit more relaxed at that point, and everybody would be entertained by the John Canoe performers and so on. But they would be heavily costumed. These are played by men. Even the feminine role, the female roles, will be played all by men. Mhm. And I think the musical sound, I discovered that there was a folk sound in Barbados that is quite similar to the John Canoe music out here in Jamaica.
Interesting, and seeing that it would have originated from um, Africa, I guess.
It would have to, there's no other
Yeah.
explanation. It was that the dressing would incorporate a bit of European garb. However, the dancers were the African descendants. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so there is some variation, I guess, throughout the region. And so as you would have spoken about characters in the Jonkunu festival, I wanted to talk about characters and storytelling within my culture. And some of the main ones, popular ones, were what I would have grew up with was Babuki and Barabi, Anansi and Chikchani. And Babuki and Barabi were the main characters in Bahamian folklore and storytelling. However, Babuki and Barabi were said to have been brought over from enslaved Africans. And Barabi was the dominant character. He would be the one who would get his best friend, Babuki, into problems. Okay. And there are so many stories within those two characters. But like I mentioned before, the main gist of it is there is going to be a consequence for your action. And like I said, it just helps to reiterate, as you would have mentioned as well, there's some type of discipline in the within the culture.
Consequences of going
The
outside of the box. Yes, always. Consequences.
absolutely. And absolutely. And another character was Anansi. That is a character in traditional storytelling as well. So Anansi, after I did my research, is the Ashanti word for spider. And in some tales, he is human or he is part human or part spider, and he is usually a trickster that causes problems. And then another character is the Chikchani, and they are said to have lived in Andros, and they are more like bird-like creatures. But like I said, the whole premise of these stories were to teach children about the consequences of bad behavior. I mean, that's one of the things that I can gather from it. But to me, when I used to hear about those stories, it was like it was always scary. It was always scary to me, you know.
You're such a scary cat.
They were scary stories. I'm telling you, they were scary stories. But I don't know if you would like to add anything, or if you have. I know you would have mentioned
I,
characters.
in our modern era, we don't really have that setting. However, my parents came up through that era where, there wasn't really electricity, but lamps, kerosene lamps. So during the night, one of the elders in the family would gather everybody at the doorstep with a tilly lamp, and they would talk about these Anansi stories. And the Anansi stories would be something to teach a lesson. So we had Anansi and Brother Tukuman, and then you have Brother Tiger, Brother Dog, Brother Cat, and so Brother. Bredda, Brother. So usually these are male characters. And Brother Nancy
Mhm.
was the mystery of it all, the cunning Jinal. We call him the Jinal. He's always upsetting everything and everybody. And he always has to pay the price for something that he would do. I don't know, there was some explanation as to why Anansi had to be up in the ceiling, why Brother Tiger has his stripes, why Brother Dog had to live outside. There's just something where something went wrong, and it's the reason why they are the way that they are. So, yes, we know that we were told it was something that is of African descent, West African, and these were the hallmark of entertainment, storytelling. Now, when I was in primary school, we were fed not with Anansi stories, but the European stories, of course, just a way of whitewashing our culture. But when I just started teaching, there were some reading books. that brought back the Nancy stories to life, which were quite interesting with the different illustrations. So you could see the character Brother Nancy, Brother Tukuman, and all the other characters that are associated with Brother Nancy, the trickster of them all. Mhm. As for this generation, I don't know if they're being told. That is the thing. I think we have some cultural gaps in transmitting, what we have learned to the new generation now.
Yes, definitely an interest. Another component of this discussion is preservation. And like you said, transmitting what we have learned to the next generation. And with, the advent of modern technology and all these things coming up, do we really take time to sit amongst our elders to really, hear about those stories, hear about them, what they would have experienced growing up, and what they would have learned? And so there is a, I guess, I don't want to say breakdown, but there is a more missing link in that part of it. And it is very important to preserve these parts of our culture, the oral traditions and storytelling, is definitely some interesting stuff. So, in conclusion, I myself believe that the Caribbean has a rich fusion of cultures and traditions that have been handed down. However, as I mentioned before, it is all about preservation, passing down the traditions to the next generation who is going to carry on what they would have learned. Oh, Mom, what are your thoughts?
No, I don't know if we can preserve everything, but there must be something we can preserve. And I don't know what our National Library has, but with this discussion that we have started today, I, I guess we can check our National Library to see if those things have been documented for us to republish for this generation to know what journey we had come through to reach this far, and where is it that, in order for them to know where we're supposed to be heading. Because these are what modern people call life hacks, the do's and the don'ts, the taboos, the taboos that we have learned. Um, but before we close, there's something I want to bring. There's some stuff that, and we're talking about folklore. We have the statement, um, well, about a knock on wood, about that, knock on wood, where if you say something and realize it's something that has not been done, you knock it so that no harm can come to you. Like, I never had an accident before, knock, 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 that sort of thing. Or, I never had this happen, and then everybody said, knock on wood. The other one, like if you're pregnant, if you're in an advanced state of pregnancy and you crave for something and you ask someone, promises you it doesn't get done, you don't scratch yourself, because if you scratch yourself, you end up with a birthmark. And you have the other one where this one is quite old, which I have proven for myself. If you dream about dirty water, it's disgrace. The one where if you dream about a funeral, it's a wedding. If you dream about a wedding, it's death. Those sort of folklores are, coming to mind right now. I think sometimes we might have infused with an American thing where you don't walk under a ladder, or something to do with a cat, a black cat or something like that. But there's so many, and I guess probably we could do well with a part two to continue this, because there's so many things that we can look at in terms of the utterances and so on. The do's and the don'ts and what they actually mean. The higher the monkey climbs, the more he exposes himself. And I think that one is self-explanatory. The higher the monkey to climb, the more him exposed. That's how we see it. Yeah. And we have big boy stories. Yeah, we have big boy stories. Yeah. that's another character where Big Boy was a mischievous, klutzy one that always gets himself into some problem within the community. Yeah.
And I even thought about our words and phrases as well, because I normally see you and some of my Jamaican colleagues say "wow," and I'm trying to figure out what does that mean. When you get excited, you say is a OWL
How you
word.
pronounce it?
Wow.
I don't know. Wow. I don't know.
Yes,
You
you
would have
guys
to
to say it
give me an idea. Give me the context.
like if something is funny or you guys find something strange, you say wow.
Oh, we say wow, but I mean, but sometimes we cross a
It's
bad
spelled
word to
differently.
match that. Sometimes we
It's
cross a
spelled
bad.
differently.
Okay.
I have to show you it. I have to show you it. It's spelled differently, and I always say I would ask when you guys, what does that mean? Because I really be
I would
lost.
have to see because remember,
I'll have to share it
depending
with
on
you.
different parts of the island, certain expressions are made.
I
So
saw you say it too.
me, okay,
Yes, I saw you say it too. But we have
all
our
right.
own words and we have our own words and phrases, because I know within my culture we have our own words too that I, some people may not understand. Maybe
No,
you
well,
may know. Let me just throw a word at you.
if there's
Let
an
me throw something at
explanation, some of us would say rotted or the other one.
you.
Yeah. And depending
Yeah.
on which socioeconomic group you come from, you say, and I
Mm,
use in what you call it no in letters BBC or RC. We would say that depending on the crowd that we are in. So
okay.
um yeah, so quite colorful. Yeah, quite
Yeah.
quite
We
colorful
well
word.
we have our own words to say, and that is a whole show in and of itself, because there's so many
Hmm.
different sayings. But I see you guys have your own way of communicating, and I honestly sometimes I is be lost. I is be like, what are they talking about?
Oh
Okay.
man, don't worry, you'll catch up.
What's that? The patois.
Yes, the patois. Yes, Fui patois. I saw
Mhm.
it all.
We have our own. We have a. Yeah, I let me throw this last one out at you before we go. Do you have a word for biggity?
For what?
Biggity.
You, explain. Give me the definition.
Biggity means you are more aggressive, I guess.
Oh, I would have to think.
Like
Biggity is
you're a biggity woman.
oh, or you're going like you're up there, or you hype, or there's another word though, but it's like you're going like what you're going like. So what that for? You reach, you're up there, that sort of. There's so many different phrases
Well,
depending on where you come from.
but
Like
Bahamians know
you
what
get rich.
biggity mean in our culture.
Bigoted, no, but I'm giving you the equivalent from the Jamaican standpoint, depending on the socioeconomic
Yeah,
group you're from. So, so people from
right.
downtown or certain areas would call it something else, when we in the mid-level would call it something else, and then the uptowners would call it another way. And then you
Now
have
you're
the sub.
telling me that's interesting, Lisette, because now you're telling me that people from downtown and people from uptown, right? They have different, you know.
Same patois, but and then there are some subdivisions. Like for instance, I would say, come here, like come here, come here. Um, where are you going? Where you go? Um, Ben go there, so she go there, so him go there, so going there. They say he's going down there. He might go down the road. He might go there, so Ben down there, so that's so it depends on the community where you're from, the parish. So if you say I am educated, so I have a message for you. Another community will say may have a message for you, for you. one next person say, me get matches, not message, no, matches for you or for you. You understand? So it depends on where. And then we have the accents. So Kingston accent is different than Westmoreland accent, which is different from St. Anne
That
accent.
is so true. Even in
Yes.
that is so true because in some islands you have you have a different accent. That is so true. It
Mm-hmm,
is so wow, wow.
mm-hmm.
Some interesting stuff. We are really a diverse set of people.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I remember, we're made up of different tribes. So there are certain communities that have certain sounds. Certain sounds. It's like, let me give you an example from your own territory. The similarity in accents between Turks and Caicos and Bahamas. They're similar. They're not quite the same. There are certain phrases that are used differently, right? And my daughter overheard you and you were speaking to me on the phone. So she asked me where you are from. And I told her, but she has someone from Turks and Caicos in her class. So she said there are similarities in the intonation, that sort of, what you call it, rhythmic articulation of the voice. So yeah, man. So there are some differences and similarities. So it's like Chinese have this sing-song sort of tone, and then the Haitians have their own abrupt sounding sort of tone, and then the Bahamians have their a kind of sing song that sort of cross over into an American sort of thing. And then we Jamaicans know we are so much in the middle that we can do British, we can do Bahamian, we can do Canadian, American, we can do Indian. We just have that thing that even when telemarketers come, they tend to like to recruit Jamaicans because we are so flexible in how we do our rhythmic articulation of sounds. I guess we are good on mimicking sounds. So it has a lot to do with the what you call it, the diversity of our heritage, the different tribes that we have intermingled with, and we just come out with our own unique thing. I
Absolutely.
hope that makes sense. I hope that makes
Absolutely. Absolutely. I don't know, like you mentioned, the rhythmic. Say that again. The rhythmic.
rhythmic articulation of words.
Right. And then
So
do you
I may say, um, runaway bay, which is how I would say it. You probably would say it differently where the accent would fall on a different part of the syllable. You understand? So runaway bay has four syllables. Where would the accent fall? Where would the downbeat fall and upbeat fall? So you may say runaway bay when I would say runaway bay. So it really depends. So that's why I said the rhythmic aspect of it and where the accents fall.
absolutely, absolutely. This is some interesting talk. And so I guess we'll save it for another session. Um, but my co-host today, Miss Lisette Hawthorne from Jamaica. Thank you for joining me today. I
Thank
would
you for having
lastly
me.
like to thank you. Always good having you. I would like to thank our viewers for listening in. You can leave your comments and like our page for future notifications of upcoming talks. And we have a YouTube channel, so you can also subscribe to Can We Talk. Thank you and good
And click the
evening.
like button.
And click the like button. Yes. Thank you. Have a good evening.